All right. Welcome everyone here to the Thriving Marriage here on High Thrive Live. As always, I'm Heather Choate, International Mindset Expert, and I'm here with Mark Johnston. Oh my goodness, we're not married.
You do
No,
have
we're
a
not.
Mark Choate done.
I do, and so I think that just slipped into my brain.
But
Just so everyone's perfectly clear, this is Mark Johnston, International Marriage Expert, and we are delighted and excited to be here with you today. And if you can see and hear us just fine, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, let us know that you're watching. We always like to make these very interactive and engaging with you. So today we are talking about how to save your marriage on your own, part 2. Last week we talked about the important mindset shift that we have to understand that it's possible to save our marriage on our own. In fact, it's necessary that we be the ones to go first, especially when our spouse is pulling away from us. And today we're going to go a little bit deeper into that and talk to you about an important concept that we call our push versus pull method. Just to give a little bit of background here, we often see people that are coming to us needing help in their marriage, and they say, I've tried everything. Right, Mark? They say, I've read the books, I've gone to the counselor, we've talked to the pastor, we've done the courses, we've done these programs, but nothing seems to be working. And it really becomes much more simple than that. And when we talk to them, we realize that the things that they think they're doing right are actually pushing their spouse further away. So just to give a couple examples here, and Mark, you can throw some into the mix, but these are the ones that we commonly see. Anything that is like a scare tactic, like I'm going to leave you, I'm going to take the kids. If I leave you, if we separate, then you'll realize how much you really need me, and you'll miss me, and you'll want to come back to me, right? What are some other examples, Mark?
demanding that the other person work on the marriage or that they commit to the marriage, or talking to your partner about all the things that they should be doing to make things work. I think those are all, it kind of makes sense, at least on some level, why people would be doing these things. And you would think, okay, well, if I'm asking my husband or wife to work on the marriage, isn't that the right thing to do? In some cases, it might work, but it's not necessarily the ideal way to approach this.
Right. And let's think about when we're feeling a lot of pushing, like I'm going to push for this to work. I'm going to really make this happen. What's happening internally, the internal mindset and the emotions that's going on is absolute fear. It's absolute panic. And when you are in that kind of a state, you simply cannot make effective decisions. You won't react to your spouse properly, and you won't engage with them properly. And when they feel that fear and that tension from you, what's going to be their first response? If anyone comes at you with a lot of fear and a lot of tension, do you want to step toward that person, or do you want to run away from them?
Well, I think it really depends a lot on how much care there is in the situation. But, if you're at this point, that care is naturally going to be lower. There's going to be less. It's going to be less likely that your spouse is going to take the time to be patient and understanding of why there's all this desperation and fear and tension. And yeah, like Heather was saying, it would really push them further away.
Absolutely. So anything that is desperate, pleading, begging, demanding that they work on things, or using any kind of scare tactics or manipulation is going to do exactly what the push method says. It's going to push them further away. Mm-hmm. And so if you find yourself doing any of those kind of behaviors or feeling yourself in that kind of panic mode and that you're acting from that place, then you want to take a big step back and think about what's going to get you going closer to reconnecting with your spouse. And so that's why Mark and we teach what we call the pull method. So this is a really natural way to have your spouse easily and effortlessly want to be drawn back to you like a magnet. And the first step in the pull method is to really help make things safe and comfortable for your spouse again. Mm-hmm. So Mark, what would be a way that we could do that to really help our spouse feel safer in the relationship?
Well, I think it's a natural reaction when someone, a lot of people are coming in here because their spouse has indicated in some way that the marriage is tanking, it's going downhill, or it's getting close to being over. And so a lot of people react negatively to that, and they're showing all this sadness and anger, defensiveness. So we're looking at a little bit of the other end of this. We're looking at what's really important when your husband or wife is coming to you and saying, hey, there's a lot of problems here. It's really important it's an opportunity for you right then. It's important for you to take those concerns, those problems, those statements, and try and understand it better. There's some simple building blocks to rebuilding trust and openness. And one of the biggest things that you can do is about having acceptance and understanding, especially when things are rough. So, I mean, if your husband or wife saying, hey, I want a divorce, it's time for you to say, okay, that's hard to hear, but I want to understand. Okay, what's going on? What's the problem? Why do you want a divorce? What is it that you're looking for? What is it that you want? What's the plan here? And just approaching it from a very matter-of-fact sort of standpoint, just trying to get that understanding. It's going to open a lot of doors. It's going to help them to feel that much safer to open up about other things.
That's right. And we call this our infallible technique to help your spouse open up. Because oftentimes when a spouse is pulling away from the marriage, it's very difficult to communicate at all, civilly, or especially about the relationship, right? And the more you try to push the relationship subject, more often than not, you get kind of that resistance. The walls are up and they don't want to communicate about that.
You're so upset right now, and I'd like to understand. I'd like you to tell me about it. I'd like to understand this. I bet that would feel pretty amazing. So Heather, I see you're back now. I was just going a little bit further on that. And I'm just looking at our notes here. what else did we need to talk about? We've gone over the push versus pull. We've talked about giving understanding. I guess we can go on to some of the mindset required here.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where it's like that internal shift that you get to the state of calm about the situation rather than the panic. And when someone's calm and they're more at peace, then it's much more easy for interactions to occur between two people because your spouse will sense that shift in you as well. Right. So what are some of the first things that we need to do to make sure that we are in a state ourselves that we can then start to work on these things to reconnect and really help pull our spouse back in?
Oh, that's a great question, because I'll admit it's really hard it is hard when you're faced with such a huge issue like this to just say, you know, I'm not going to react. I'm not going to be upset. I'm going to take the time to be patient. That is absolutely difficult if you're not in the right mindset. And so where you need to start, if you just really want to break it down into something that a little bit more concrete, it's about trying to figure out what you can control versus what you can't control in this situation, and putting aside those things that you can't control. You know, if you focus a lot of your time on the aspects of the relationship that you do not control, you're just going to drive yourself crazy. It's just, you're going to set all these expectations and you're going to get disappointed when they're not met, and it's going to further build up that resentment. It's going to further push your partner further.
Absolutely. And there's often a lot of pain and, like Billy mentioned here, you know, rejection, resentment, and a lot of really deep hurts. And when you don't have a process in place on how to process through those emotions, you can absolutely get stuck in them. And then when you're stuck in them, everything is tainted through that perspective of pain. And so that's one of the most important things that we teach in our programs, is how to process through those emotions. It's not about ignoring them. It's not about suppressing them, but it's about working through them and feeling them so that then you can get to a place where you can be in a better state with yourself and with your spouse to move you forward effectively. So that's another really important piece to it as well. Any other final thoughts about the mindset required to really reconnect with your spouse and save your marriage on your own?
I think something important here is just taking time to think about how you're thinking. You know, if you're approaching this with anger, with fear, with sadness, are you really going to be that effective? When do you ever solve problems best? When you're in that sort of state. No, the time when you really get things done, it's when you're feeling motivated, when you know what the next step is going to be, when you have that confidence. And absolutely, this is what you need to be working on with that mindset, is finding that plan, having that confidence that you're taking the right steps and you're doing everything that you can possibly do. And then beyond that, letting go of those things that you don't control. Yeah.
That's right. And now, Carlos, we worked with you yesterday. Carlos, welcome back. Should I continue to be the one to initiate contact? So yesterday, as we were working with you, we were talking about kind of where things are at and utilizing every opportunity that you have to reconnect with your spouse. There will get to be a certain point in your relationship that your spouse, your wife, will start to initiate more and more contact on her own. Until then, it's exactly what we were coaching you on yesterday, is how to balance that with knowing when is it a little too much and what is the right amount, and taking those tiny baby steps forward. So if you have any further questions about that, let us know. Now, Mark, let's go back to our infallible technique to have your spouse open up. So we have the mindset right. We know we have to do this on our own. We're willing to do it first. We've got our processes in place to, process our emotions and get to that solid state, that centered state where we can effectively communicate with our spouse. But what if they still won't open up? Can you give us one action here, one specific question? And this we call our golden question. One, maybe two. We'll see what you got for us today. To help our spouse open up, to get those channels of communication opening up in the right way.
Well, If they're simply not opening up, then you need some sort of avenue, some sort of reason for them to talk. And so right there, it's mostly about figuring out what, or at least taking a good guess at what they want and using that as a way in. Now, that's, I'm going to say it's a fairly simple sort of thing to do. Maybe that's oversimplifying it, but that is a fairly direct thing. You know your spouse well enough. You know the kind of things that they're looking for, the things that they want. You possibly know some reasons why they're getting the divorce. That is your avenue in, as much as you can align yourself with their goals. But even further, once you get them talking, you're talking about specific things to do or specific things to say. I love the question. It's very simple. What do you mean? As far as, like once you're in this conversation, and you want to use this question a lot, whether that is, well, especially when there's really big statements, very emotional statements, very angry statements. There's usually a lot more to these statements than what's said. For instance, your spouse says, "I just want a divorce." Okay, I get that. What do you mean? What is it that you want from that? Just a simple opening up and an attempt to get more information. It usually does a lot of good. I mean, sure, there's going to be more extreme cases where a question like that might anger your spouse, and this is a good time then to ask some questions from us. But in general, most people want to feel understood. Most people want to share something of themselves, even if it's in anger. And asking a question like that absolutely opens up the conversation. So we
yes, this is even with my children. My husband is, what do you mean? Because we often think we know what they mean, but to have them step back and realize, think about it themselves, process through that. What do I actually mean? It helps take the conversation to that deeper level and helps give more clarity and understanding to what is going on. And when someone asks you, what do you mean? That allows you very often to want to open up and to share and explain. One of the most common human needs that we have is to be understood. Almost nothing feels better than to feel like another human being understands us. And so when we have the opportunity to have someone potentially understand us, we almost always will take it. So asking your spouse, what do you mean, is very likely going to get you a response that will get you deeper into a conversation and help to open up those channels of communication.
So Heather, I see a comment on here. Dana is asking, how do you work with a spouse who's passive aggressive? So in these sort of situations, opening up it's really hard. Those passive aggressive types, they're going to hold back a little bit more. They're going to have a little bit more of those snide remarks. They're not going to cooperate quite as much, but they're not going to be maybe openly hostile. I think in these sort of situations, it is better just to bring things up to the forefront and to really start calling out what's going on. So, a passive-aggressive spouse might be upset, might be showing it in some subtle ways, but it might not be saying it. And this is another generally very useful statement is, hey, you seem blank. What's going on? And just pointing out the strong, whatever emotion you think is going on there. Calling it up to the forefront is going to completely sidestep a lot of that passive aggressive sort of thing going on there.
Yeah, very, very good. All right. And then Jamie says, it's so difficult when one partner retreats in fear because they are jaded and carry pain from previous experiences. It absolutely is. And that's why it's so crucial that you learn how to reconnect in the right way using the pull method versus the push method. So my daughter found some magnets that my husband had, these really pretty shiny rocks. And I was trying to find them to show you because I like to show visual aids. And he must have hit them. Anyway, so she's 4 years old and she's sitting on the edge of our bed and my husband takes the one, and he flips the other one around and puts it in her hand. And he says, okay, try to connect them. And she's like, okay. So she takes her little hand and she gets about here, and then she can't do it because the pull of the magnet. And she was totally baffled. Like, what just happened? You know, like she couldn't figure it out. So she put it over on this side and she put it over on this side. And this like invisible energy was stopping her. And she just started laughing because it was so strange to her. You know, it wasn't like two blocks that she could just put together. And then my husband showed her how she could flip it around, and the magnet easily just connected so naturally and so beautifully. And that's exactly like what we're talking about here, is that when you're pushing, you're just like fighting that resistance with resistance. And it's only going to create more tension and more distance between you and your spouse, versus the other way of doing things where you naturally and easily just draw your spouse back to you. They are hungry oftentimes for that loving connection and that understanding, that empathy, and that appreciation from you. So really working to make things safe and comfortable, even despite past challenges, even despite past experiences, maybe in your relationship or maybe even prior to that, they can absolutely be overcome as you learn to do it in the right way. So action step for you all is to take what Mark just said about, you're on this side. There we go. I got the finger pointing right. Take what Mark just said and use that question right there. What do you mean? And ask your spouse this. And I challenge you all to do that today. So if you're in on this challenge, if you're going to do it with us, then say, I'm in. Comment on the comments below. Say, I'm in. And then comment below and report back to us on how it went and how this interaction was deeper than before with your spouse.
So I just want to touch on what Jamie's asking about right here before we head out. So she's saying that he's always saying that I'm trying to force things, but I honestly don't feel that I am. I mean, this is a perfect example of needing some extra help, needing some feedback. A lot of times we don't see how we're contributing to some of the issues within a relationship. Or it's possible that maybe you're not contributing as much as he's saying, but still feedback is going to be needed in this sort of situation, because it's really hard to say what exactly is going on without knowing the specifics. She then is going on and asking, where can I learn this method? Well, we're right here. We offer online coursework. We offer one-on-one support, a more premium program. We offer lots of services, and you can head to our website, www.highthrivecoaching.com, and get started there. So we love to teach you this method if that's what you're looking for, Jamie.
Yeah, so we truly specialize in specifically the situation where one spouse is checked out, and we have a proven step-by-step system to help you reconnect in the right ways, and it works phenomenally. We're so grateful to see so many of the wins of our clients. They're literally flooding in. I like to try to save them all, and there's been so many that I cannot even physically save them all because they're coming in so fast, which is just wonderful. It means people are doing the work and beautiful things are happening in marriages. Our final thing is that we are going to be sharing with you guys a secret psychological technique to attract your spouse back into your marriage. This is a project that we've been working on and are really excited about. I'm putting the finishing touches on it to make it truly, truly awesome for you all. And so if you are interested in that secret psychological technique to attract your spouse back into your marriage, and know that there are just a few simple shifts that will truly make all the difference for you in your relationship, then go ahead and let me know in the comments. Say, I want the secret. That'll be the comment line. I want the secret. And I'd be happy to share that all with you guys. Well, we appreciate you. And thank you, Mark, again, for sharing your incredible expertise that is truly transforming marriages around the world, and grateful to do this work with you all. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
See you, everyone.
Say bye-bye. 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 It's always so awkward here at the end of a live stream while I'm waiting for it to say finished podcasting, but at least you get to see this cute baby.